So the recording is starting now. And so as we all know, we're here today to see this presentation from Allied Disaster Defense. They're a local company that provides wildfire prevention services. They're not the only company that does that. This isn't an endorsement by the Fire Safe Council of Allied Disaster Defense, but OP lives in the canyon here. They've done some work on other houses in the canyon here. And so we're thankful for them to take the time to provide this presentation today. And I want to ask everyone to mute your computer. There will be time for questions at the end, but for now, we'll hold off on the questions until we get through the presentation. And with that, I'll turn it over to OP and Rich.
Thank you, Eric. And I'm going to hand this over to Rich here in a second. I just wanted to let people know kind of what got us involved in this type of work.
Is being recorded.
Got it. It was 2020, and those of you that lived in still here in Chino Hills remember the Blue Ridge Fire. I was on the southern part and eastern part of Chino Hills at the time, and I remember seeing the hill glowing on the backside, and I thought, okay, we should just leave, and so we voluntarily evacuated. And the shock was really the next day, because when I opened up the elevator doors from the hotel I was staying at, I took my dogs out to go to the restroom. But as I'm going through the lobby is jam-packed. People are so loud, they're panicking, and there's this sense of frustration and mostly a sense of uncertainty, because now the evacuation orders were mandatory and people were looking for a place to stay. But everyone kept asking each other, do you know if your street or if your home is going to make it? And this was the biggest frustration that was going on. And so in our business of disaster restoration, that's really where we've come from in the last 30 years I've been involved in. That's when I really decided, okay, prevention has got to be a key component, because I didn't know if my home survived or not either. And so that got us into diving into, what does this really mean? Is it possible that a home can survive? And if so, what do we have to discover? What do we have to do to make sure that we're doing that for ourselves? And that's when I went off into this mission of really trying to discover what we can do as homeowners. And that's how I ran into Rich Snyder. Rich Snyder is a 35-year fire captain, fire marshal, engine boss. Like, he's done so much in the wildfire world, but also the prevention world. And so Rich and I just got together and said, hey, let's do something significant that can help ourselves, our homeowners, our communities, and literally cities, to see what we can do to help prevent the effects of wildfire damage. So with that, Rich, I'll toss it over to you, my friend, and let you do.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, let me share my screen here. Make sure we're working there. There we go. Yeah, Rich Snyder. I just retired, 36 years with the fire department. I was a captain and fire marshal for 25 years. I responded on OES engines, type 1s, type 6. I apologize for noise in the background. My dogs. I served on state code committees for the 7A, for the building standards for the wildfire, do education, and just kind of my career focused on wildfire. So tonight I'm going to give you a presentation. There's a lot we're going to go over, but I know you're a fire safe council. Everyone's, kind of on board. So you're going to see some stuff that you've seen before, maybe at a different viewpoint on it. At the end, there's going to be a QR code with resources to PowerPoint presentations and videos that you'll see today. So we're going to push our way through this. So most people, get this thing moving here. So most people, when we talk about losing homes in a wildfire, they imagine this home nestled in the forest or in the brush, and this tsunami wave of flames taking the house out. And of course, in this case, that is going to be the case. This homeowner has very little chance of surviving that tsunami wave that's going to hit them. But in reality, this is what we're seeing. The majority of the homes that were lost they're not necessarily sitting in that wildland. This is Coffee Park outside of Santa Rosa, where 27 homes were lost overnight, and they were, a couple miles from the wildland interface. Yet they were all lost. It was an urban conflagration, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Now, the NFPA 1710 says the minimum requirements for to fight a house fire is 15. And I can tell you, and our fire friends that are joining us can tell you that usually it's around 25 to effectively extinguish a structure fire. Well, what happens in this case? Here I've got 10 homes. Where you're going to get the 150 firefighters and the 50 fire engines that's required to put these out. So the thought of each house that catches on fire in a wildfire, that we're going to be able to effectively attack it like we normally do, is not a reality. And what do you do in this case? So the answer to the problem is not more fire suppression. You couldn't put enough firefighters and enough iron on the road to be able to attack each individual house fire during a wildfire. So the answer is fire prevention. And we're not going to be able to stop these fires, but we can keep the fires from destroying homes. It's not a helpless situation. We've seen it time and time again where a wildfire passes through and the home survives, and we can do that. And the way we do that is applying a hazard mitigation methodology. So we're going to reduce our exposure by working and dealing with the vegetation and reducing that exposure. And then we're going to harden the home by putting in ember-resistant vents and things that we can do to keep that structure from catching on fire. So if you're going to go to battle, you need to know your enemy. And there's 3 things that are going to attack a home during a wildfire. And that's direct flame contact. And you see that here in this photo. This is taken at the Paradise Fire, where the flames actually attack the house. You've got radiant heat, such as coming off that fence. And then you've got embers. And we're going to touch a little bit on each one of those this evening. So eliminating 2 of those 3 threats is simple, just through vegetation management. And you eliminate those 2 things by following minimum state standards, which is 30 feet, a 30-foot zone called zone 1, and then out to 100 feet. And doing vegetation management to zone 1 is going to eliminate that direct flame contact. In zone 2, you're working towards getting that radiant heat down so your home will survive. And this works. We've seen it work. And we've been practicing this in California since like 1965. So it's been in the code and it works. And this is kind of what it looks like, okay? We've got a house. That first 30 feet, we keep it what we call lean and green. Again, it's going to burn, but it's going to be low intensity. It's not going to set the house on fire. That next 70 feet down to the fence, again, we've managed the vegetation, so the radiant heat, and we've cut down on what we call ember cast onto the structure. Here's an example. It's not removing the vegetation. It's managing the vegetation. So at the top of the screen, you see a laurel sumac that's native and growing. At the forefront of the screen, you see the same plant. We did what's called lollipopping. We took the energy out of it. We removed the vegetation, knowing it's going to burn, but we're going to prevent that fire from going from plant to plant to plant, and obviously structures. Now, it doesn't have to look like this. Now, this home, I can tell you, they probably did this for the drought busters in California, right? This orange house, and they took everything out because they didn't want to water it. Well, that also made it fire safe. If you don't have the vegetation to burn, it's fire safe. But it doesn't have to look like that. This is also fire safe. Okay, we've spread out the vegetation. We've got wild apple, we got gravel, things so the vegetation will burn, but we've cut down on that radiant heat. So here's an example of a home in San Bernardino. This home in the center we're looking at, this home in the center, it meets fire code. The fire department came by, passed its inspection. They've got not only 30 feet behind their house, they've got 40 feet and not managed vegetation. They've got concrete. So you can't get any more fire resistant than that. They got 40 feet of concrete, and even the fire on the hills, the vegetation on the hillside is kind of a light, flashy fuel, not a lot of energy, very manageable fire, not a big threat. However, this homeowner planted junipers at the edge of their property. I'm going to show you this video, and get it going here. So here's this video. Again, the flames, very small flames, light, flashy fuels. Now, during this video, they're going to have to stop and extend their hose line because they ran out of hose because the homeowners left all the gates locked. So they had to go around, which is another concern. But watch this flame when it hits this juniper. And I want to show you how intense these things burn. And they don't burn for very long. This plant's probably going to burn for less than 30 seconds, but an extreme amount of energy is going to impact that house. And we'll get closer with the camera here. They're swapping out the hose now. And soon you're going to see it there. Now the juniper's going. I want you to see the flame lengths and how much energy and radiant heat is hitting that house. The flames are darn near 40 feet touching the house, be it the radiant heat, the direct flame contact, what we call heat flux ahead of the flame, is impacting that house, even though they've got 40 feet of clearance, 10 foot beyond what the state requires. And take a look at the house. You'll see the siding that's burning off the house. It's got vinyl siding that's coming off, and that heat is impacting those windows. So any heat going in through those windows, if there's curtains, if it was combustible siding, wood siding, any curtains, furniture inside, it's getting that impacted heat. Now, fortunately, it was only one plant, but you can imagine if it was much larger or if there was a row of them, the impact that would have had on that house. And again, we'll pan up and you can see the siding that's falling off the side of the house, because in 30 seconds, it burned the siding. So, and that house was to code. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with what junipers are, this is a juniper. After seeing that video, and you see on the right here, this juniper that's planted for privacy up against the house, what kind of an impact would that burning, with the intensity you saw on that last video, of going in through those windows and attacking the eave of that house? There's very little chance that that house is going to catch on fire. We also see low growth junipers, ones that are low to the ground. They're 18 to 24 inches to the ground. And we notice people like to plant those around the edge of their house so people can't walk up to the windows. They're looking at it as a security measure. But with the intense fire and energy that's produced by those junipers, it's definitely a threat to the house. Another one we see is the Italian cypress. And people love their Italian cypress. But again, just like the junipers, they're burned very intensely. And notice the embers that are coming off of that fire. That radiant heat, direct flame going against that house has set the house on fire. And those embers will travel for up to a mile. And as those embers fall into the maybe 2 blocks away and start a secondary fire, all the fire resources are coming here. The next available resources are going to be further away for that second fire. And this will compound itself, and we get what's called an urban conflagration. All of a sudden, multiple houses going, and the resources are getting thinner and thinner. So when we look at this photo, I can kind of explain to you the houses on the outside. Maybe they got hit with the fire coming up the hill, the thermal, either the flames or the heat flux hitting those homes and setting them on fire. But how do you explain the ones inside? The ones that are across a 30-foot street, they're in the infill. Well, it's those junipers. It's the vegetation on the property up next to the house that catches it on fire. Even grasses, here you've got a very manageable grass fire, and my friends here in the fire department that are attending tonight will tell you a grass fire is fast moving. It's low energy, small flames. It's difficult to burn a house down in a grass fire. It passes pretty quick. Unless, of course, in this case, a homeowner planted 4 coastal rosemary bushes right up next to the house. So those low intense flames got to that rosemary bush, which created a high intensity fire next to the house, and they lost the structure. This is the latest one that we see this year, the Miracle House of Lahaina. This white house with the red roof. It's the only one that survived in this neighborhood, and it's a miracle. Well, us fire professionals look at that and go, well, not really a miracle. The backstory on this is when they bought the house and were doing the renovations on it, there was a termite issue. So they did the termite repairs, and then they put a 5-foot buffer of gravel around the house to keep the ground dry, to keep the bugs down. Well, that's also a fire break. And that's one of the things that led to the success of this house, is having that 5-foot zone. It's not the first miracle house we've seen. This was the Miracle House of Laguna in the Emerald Bay Fire in 1993. Again, had nothing to do with the fact that it was white with a red roof. It had to do with non-combustible construction, and vegetation management. Ironically, this homeowner was self-insured, and it was the only house on the hillside that survived. So this is what's happening. The embers get into the bark mulch next to the structure, into the azaleas, all the little plants, and here you got a firefighter doing his best. But you can imagine how many firefighters are needed. These are 2 condos and a complex. Are there enough firefighters? Is that firefighter going to be able to do what needs to be done? Especially since in the mulch beds, this fires can smolder for days. Who's going to babysit those fires? Who's going to keep on those? So there's a new zone coming out. If you haven't heard about it, your fire safe council, I know you've heard about it. The 0 to 5, the ember resistant zone, zone 0 as they're referring. And it's that first 5 feet around a structure. Now, firefighters have known this for decades. When we go in and do firefighting, and the first thing we do is we put a scratch line around a house to keep the embers and any creeping fire against the house. This is now coming into code. It's actually adopted into the code. It's not being enforced yet. There's some political logistics that are being done, but it will in the future be part of your annual inspection with the fire department. Insurance companies are already recognizing this and are applying it. So the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety has done the testing. They've done wind tunnel testings, and they've proven the science behind the 0 to 5. So on the left, we see your standard structure, and we've got our Italian cypress, we've got our junipers, our azaleas, our bark mulch. You see your 30-foot zone there. On the right's going to be the new standard. This is the new standard for insurance companies, and it's going to be the new standard in California Fire Code within the next couple of years. And that's 0 combustibles within 5 feet of the house. No trash cans, no vegetation. It's going to be concrete and gravel. It looks stark. It's something we got to get used to. Kind of like the seatbelt laws. Those of you who remember when the seatbelt laws came out, it was like, I don't need to wear a seatbelt. This is my car. I'm driving. I'm not going to wear a seatbelt. Well, fast forward 30 years. If you get into a car now, you don't put your seatbelt on, something feels uncomfortable. One day, we're going to look at the house on the left and feel uncomfortable. It's just going to take some time, but it's coming. Here's some of the testing they did at IBHS. So on the right is the new standard, and we've replaced the bark mulch with gravel. No wood fence. We've replaced it with a non-combustible fence. And this is what happens during a wildfire. And again, not enough firefighters to be on every structure. This can happen a day after the fire burns through. But this is this is the most successful, probably the number 1 or 2 things that needs to be done to reduce your risk so your home will survive a wildfire. Now, even if showing combustible siding there, even if that was stucco, it's still a threat because as you can see, the window fell out. Also, there's what's called a weep screed the fire will get under that weep screed and start the inside of the house on fire. So this is some of the work we've done or we've seen. This is the 0 to 5. I did it to my own house. Practice what you preach. You can do it to your house. Have your kids come over for the weekend, have a party. You don't need to hire someone to do this. It's not that difficult. Remove the vegetation, replace it with gravel. Of course, this is OP at his house. Did the 0 to 5, pulled it out himself, and he actually got his home certified for IBHS, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Back to our orange friend our drought buster pal. Yeah, even though he did all that, we still lost his house. The fence survived, but the house is gone. And because there was no vegetation on the property, what happened? Well, we're seeing weird things like this. Here you got a house, the first floor is fine. In fact, the guys went in through the first floor to check it. You got a wildland firefighter there, and they're watching the attic burn. And they're watching this house burn from upstairs down. This is Laguna Niguel, the coastal fire. Now, the insurance company came in and made them take out those Italian cypress. Good move. Can't have those shouldn't have those on your property. And they did, they removed them. But during the coastal fire, that could have been an impact, but it wasn't because they were removed. Yet we had 21 homes, multi-million-dollar homes, all of them burned from the top down. You'll notice on the property, there's no vegetation burning. In fact, the first floors aren't burning. So I know it wasn't a plant next to the house into the first floor and then eventually into the second floor. It was the attic down into the second floor and into the first floor. And again, without those 15 firefighters, all we can do is watch it. We're talking stucco houses with tile roofs. The vegetation's still there. The attic's on fire. And this is what it's from, embers. Up to 90% of the structure loss during a wildfire is from embers. These homes, while the vegetation next to it's not burning, in fact, you've got firefighters sitting there with hose lines. If they don't have ember protection in their attics, their foundations, their bird stops, those embers will make their way into the structure and set it on fire. And without you've got 3 firefighters protecting those structures, the house catches on fire, there's not enough firefighters to go in and put it out. So you're looking at the gutter guards, the gutters, the eaves, the vents. This is the 90% of the structural loss is from embers. How do we repair that? What do? We do attic and foundation vents. Those are the threat. They make ember resistant vents. Any home built after 2010, when the new fire code came in, the 7A standard, will have some sort of an ember resistant vent. They still need to be looked at because, sometimes a critter can eat through them or something's happened. So you need to inspect your vents, but they can be retrofitted either with a new vent or with a mesh that we'll talk about in a second, that they can retrofit a vent. There are many different manufacturers out there. This was on my last assignment. This is in the Sequoias. There's putting in that 0 to 5 scratch line around. That's my team there. Putting in that 0 to 5 scratch line. 3 hours later, we lost that structure. Well, underneath that structure was this lattice work. And we actually have this on video from a Ring camera next door showing the embers underneath and this house catching on fire underneath and blowing out and burning down because the embers got underneath. Well, we can retrofit that. This actually is at my house, and I used an approved fire mesh on your decks. The problem is debris gets under those decks and you don't see it and you don't know it's there. And then embers will get in there, catch on fire, and all of a sudden the deck attached to the house is on fire. So you want ember resistant and debris resistant mesh. Now this is a stainless steel mesh. It's rated for fire, keeps the debris out, and more importantly, will keep those embers out. We can actually use this same mesh to retrofit existing vents on the house. It's State Fire Marshal approved, 7A approved, and it passed all of its ASTM testing. So it's kind of a game changer and something that a homeowner can easily do. Gutters. We clean out our gutters just before it rains. We go through the rainy season and then we don't think about them until next winter when we've got to clean them out again. Well, that means whatever debris was caught in there during the winter is sitting there in the summer. And then we get the hot, dry winds, we get embers, and now we've set the edge of the roof on fire because the debris is in the gutter. To compound it, the IBHS has shown that if you have a plastic gutter, those plastic gutters will catch on fire, set the house on fire, then drop to the ground and set the bottom of the house on fire. So it's critical that you have gutter guards, being metal gutters and metal gutter guards. Now, we've just talked about vegetation management. We've talked about home hardening, and both of those things need to happen to be successful. If you're going to harden your home but don't bother with the vegetation, you're at a risk. If you do the vegetation and don't harden your home, you're at a risk. These things need to happen simultaneously so you can protect your structure. It's a holistic approach, okay? Home hardening, vegetation management, both those need to be done. That's like a vanilla cupcake. I mean, we've all had a vanilla cupcake that tastes really good. You don't need to put frosting on it. It's really good. Well, there are other things you can do. After you complete the vanilla cupcake, you can do Fauschecker, a long-term retardant. There's sprinklers, there's pool pumps, there's fire doors. That's the frosting on the cupcake. But I'm not going to give you frosting and tell you it's dessert. So the answer is not, I'm not going to do vegetation management. I'm going to put fire retardant on it and I'm good. That's not the answer. You got to have the cupcake first. And the motto we have is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of suppression. So we've got our 0 to 5, our 30, and our 100. With the vegetation that is left, we can put long-term fire retardant on it. The retardant that we use is the same stuff that comes out of the airplanes. It's called Phos-Chek. They've been using it since the 60s. It's dropped on state and federal protected lands. CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, has been using it. It's approved by Food and Drug Administration for use as wildland firefighting. We use the same material without the red dye in it. And we can come onto the property, or there are companies, we're one of those companies, there are other companies. We can come out and pinpoint where that fire retardant needs to be. So instead of dropping it out of a plane, we can get it where it needs to be, which makes it effective, makes it efficient, and very affordable. And we can do it through high pressure pumps, backpacks. We also have a Phos-Chek tinder or mobile base, a Phos-Chek base that we can mix large amounts at a time. We actually protect the Rose Bowl every year with it. And we can put in fire breaks along fire roads for miles. This is a homeowners association in, where was this? Redlands. And we do that every couple of years. We'll put in a fire retardant line around the association. Right now, we're working on one for OP for over in Chino Hills on where we would put Phos-Chek and putting that plan together. So we have a plan should we need to activate it. We also have fire pumps, pool pumps. Now, these are the ones we supply are, professional grade. These are, 250 GPM pumps at 100 PSI, multiple hose lines. We provide the hose, the training for the homeowners so they know how to set it up, how to use it, but more importantly, how not to use it. We don't train homeowners how to be firefighters. We show them how to set up the pump. They can wet things down, but we also educate them on when to evacuate because we don't want to turn them into firefighters. We also, with the pumps, we also provide fire gels, and there's 2 different manufacturers out there, 2 of the main ones. Very effective. This is me using it at the Hasty Fire in Santa Barbara. I also cut a Christmas tree in half. We're using fire gel. It's effective, 8 to 24 hours, and we provide that for homeowners as well. But the important thing about the barricade and the fire pumps is we provide a sign for the fire department. And I can tell you from the years of responding with the OES engine, if I'm going to triage houses, I've got 5 houses that I've got to triage and figure out a plan. If I know one's got barricade foam or gel and has got a pool pump, I'm going to throw a firefighter at that house and we're going to use that equipment. Now I'm not using my own equipment, which means if I'm going to evacuate, if the fire gets too close, I don't have to plan to pick up my equipment, or I don't have to leave my equipment there. I just jump on the rig and go. So these signs are very powerful, and it helps the fire department by showing them that you've got equipment and have done proactive actions to your property. Exterior foam and sprinkler systems, they're not the answer. That's part of the frosting, but they're available. And we have several different vendors that we use. We vetted everybody. And if appropriate, those are available as well. Sometimes we run into challenges like this with these big plate glass windows. People want the view. How do you protect those windows? Well, we also have manufacturers of roll-up doors. These are popular in Europe to prevent structure-to-structure fire spread. We've placed them on structures. Not all of the windows. Maybe it's just one plate glass window that needs to be protected. We have that available too. That there are manufacturers out there. Wildfire monitoring. I just noticed the other day that Google Maps now has wildfire alerts on it, or location of wildfires. I think it came out in the last week, which is amazing. CAL FIRE, they've got their Ready, Set, Go, and they've got an app for that. Everyone's got an app, right? So we also monitor wildfires, and we notify anybody that we work with, all of our clients, we notify them of wildfires. But again, this is something that you can download to your phone and have that ready. And that's important because in evacuation, it's important that you get out early. This is the Woolsey fire, and you see this lady that's standing in the middle of traffic. This is coming on PCH southeast out of Malibu. Traffic's at a standstill. Now, underneath that fire plume, that smoke, what we call a plume, is what you see on the right side. Now, this picture was actually taken from the Paradise Fire, and I'm sure we've all seen the videos and the tragedy that happened there. But until you've been through a wildfire, you don't necessarily understand that this picture on the right was like 10 o'clock in the morning. It might as well have been 1 o'clock in the morning. And you don't want to put yourself in that position. So it's important to know have an evacuation plan and know when to evacuate. So we provide evacuation plans. It's not a secret. We're using the CAL FIRE Ready, Set, Go. Anybody can go to CAL FIRE's website and put together an evacuation plan. The key to it is you have to do it. Oftentimes we tell people about it. It's a great idea. And then the next day you go to work, then you go to softball practice, then you go to this, you go to the 2 weeks later, you forgot about it and you don't do it. We actually just do it for you and have you put your information and make sure you have it. So tonight, write this down. If you haven't done it, go to the Ready, Set, Go program, CAL FIRE, do your plan. Take that hour to do it and put those plans in your car and make sure your family knows those plans. Little bit about Allied, our staff. We have 15, actually soon going to be over 20 firefighters, retired firefighters, fire marshals, captains, investigators with 30 years of experience. They've retired, but they still want to be in the fight. And so they work with us. They're great guys. We have a lot of fun because, we get together. It's almost like we're back in the firehouse again. And they love to be out there and helping people. And it all starts with our wildfire assessment. Now, what we do is we have a firefighter come out and fire risk. We do fire modeling or triaging of your structure. As if there's a fire, will this house survive? I did that for 30 years doing structure triage. I'm doing it now. There's no fire yet. Will it survive? If the answer is no, we're going to make a list of things that need to be done. It's not a check sheet. It's actual from an experienced firefighter. And if you're interested in doing this on your own, if you go to the Ready, Set, Go program through CAL FIRE, they have the tools where you can walk yourself through your own home assessment. And so this is something that a homeowner can do. Of course, if you could always call us and we're glad to help you out too. The Wildfire Prepared Home, we'll talk a little bit about this. We're actually the third-party vendor to certify homes for the Wildfire Prepared. This is something that Farmers is using. We'll touch on it. Vegetation management. You can do it on the weekend. Get your kids out there. Get a 0 to 5 going. If you need some help, again, Ready, Set, Go. They've got the information for you. There's a lot of drawings. There's the Firewise has got stuff. Fire Safe Council. There's a lot of information out there. Do your research. If you need help, feel free to give us a call and we can help you out as well. Home hardening solutions, okay? The vents and gutter guards. Make sure that your home is protected. I'd say that the two most important things to reduce your risk, the most is going to be ember resistant vents and gutter guards and that 0 to 5. If you do anything, those two things are going to be the most effective. So Wildfire Prepared Home, this is IBHS. They did the testing. They proved the science behind this. They've come up with a standard of all these mitigating factors. OP's house is the very first Wildfire Prepared Plus home in California. It's actually only available in California. The first two, one of them was in Paradise. It was a new home. This is the second one, which is actually the very first Plus home. Since we got into this, so about a year ago, we've certified dozens of homes. Again, you can go to the Wildfire Prepared website. It's a little difficult to navigate, but you can get in there, see all the requirements, do the work yourself, call them, they'll send an inspector. It is a little challenging because it's not necessarily easy to understand, but OP, you can talk at the end some offerings that we do and some things how we can help people on getting that Wildfire Prepared Plus home. And let's talk about insurance. I think you guys have probably heard there's an insurance issue in California. We think it's California. In reality, it's nationwide. Florida and Louisiana, they're dropping their insurance right and left. But let's talk about California. As we all know, AIG exited the California market. State Farm and Allstate stopped announcing new new products or new policies, Farmers is requiring that wildfire prepared home certification in order to renew. And as we all know, State Farm began the non-renewing of 70,000 policies starting in May. So people are getting dropped by State Farm. These are admitted carriers through the state. So what do we do if we lose our admitted coverage? And admitted coverage means it's regulated by the state. So you have, lower rates and great coverage. Those are the people that are having trouble staying in business. So what do you do? Or why are we here? First of all, why are we here? Well, we've had larger, more severe fires. The California Department of Insurance Infrastructure has made the insurance industry a non-profitable. In fact, it's a losing proposition for the insurance companies. So they have to, that's why they're not bringing on more, and they're having to try to shed off some of their risk. And the cost of reinsurance and rehousing, building costs, all these costs have gone up. And the cost of providing insurance, the cost is far outweighed the amount of money they can collect for insurance. And it's just not a profitable business anymore. So now you're stuck with going with what's called a non-admitted carrier, which is not regulated by the state. It's good insurance, but it is more expensive. So these are the mitigating factors that IBHS has come up with. The state of California has said, so these are the IBHS. You meet all those and you can get certified. State of California has gone to the insurance admitted carriers and said, look, we're going to let you increase some rates, but you got to provide discounts for these individual mitigating factors. So that's a good start. But again, it's not all of them. Your insurance company may say, hey, you need to do vents, and that's it. We're going to give you a discount. And that's a good start. Now, that may not be the problem that takes your house out. That might be changing one of the 4 bald tires, but it's a start. Your non-admitted carriers, the ones that's kind of the wild west of insurance, where you're going to pay a little more, but you're going to get insurance. They're requiring these mitigation factors. And then the California Fair Plan, if you do all of the mitigating factors, a lot like the wildfire prepared home, they're going to give you a discount. So everyone needs to be involved. It used to be, we pay our insurance bill, we don't think about it. I'm good for another year until my agent calls. Well, things are changing. Policyholders, homeowners need to take an active role in reducing the risk on their property. The insurance companies need to do their part. Homeowners need to do their part. We need to protect the homeowners' life and property. We need to protect the interest of the insurance company, the interest of the mortgage company. We're all in this together, and homeowners need to take that responsibility along with the insurance companies. And those solutions and the things that need to be addressed, again, are the wildfire risk assessments. Find out where you stand. Harden your home. Come up with those solutions that need to be done to harden your home. Get a vegetation management plan to protect your home. Then you've got the add-ons, the long-term fire retardant, the wildfire monitoring, having an evacuation plan. These are the steps you need to survive and reduce your risk for a wildfire. And if you can't afford to do it all, at least have a plan so you have somewhere to start. I hope I left time for questions. I love this picture. It's the people taking pictures of the airplane dropping the fire retardant in their shorts and flip-flops. As that laurel sumac explodes behind them, they're in for a surprise. This is a QR code that's got resources for you. Some of the videos you saw today. We have additional videos, and we've got different PowerPoint presentations that are uploaded on there. Share with your friends and family. Let's save homes in California. It's not a helpless situation. We can survive this. We can make it happen. All right, OP, back to you, brother.
Awesome. Yeah, look, I think just opening it up to questions would be great. I know as you could either put the questions in the chat, or you could just jump in and have a conversation. But the issue, one of the things that we get a lot in dealing with HOAs and fire safe councils and insurance companies and brokers and realtors is that the homeowners are frustrated because the insurance companies are non-renewing them. And so they feel this anxiety of, now what do I do? Right. And so this presentation here really just uncovers what needs to be done. And so by doing so, and investing in your property mitigation, what you're doing essentially is you're making an investment yourself, through your family, through just hard work, or, you know, having someone do it for you. But once that's done, then you can say, okay, my home is absolutely safer than it was before, because are the things that I did that were on this presentation. And now you can go to market. Now you can say to all the carriers, you can get yourself an agent or a broker and say, hey, Mr. Broker, here are all the things that I've done to my home. Go to market and see who's willing to take me. And your chances of insurability have just quadrupled, because the insurance companies are looking around saying, okay, everyone's coming to us begging for insurance, but they're actually looking at who is more trustworthy. Oh, that person there has done a lot of mitigation work or some mitigation work. We are going to partner with those people and provide insurance. So really, it's a place of a lot of people are panicking because we've never had to be involved in mitigating our own risk from a prevention side. We've always just left it up to the insurance company to say, hey, take care of my disaster when it takes place. Unfortunately, the market has changed dramatically, and we're all feeling the pinch of it. But like Rich said, you know, we're not helpless against wildfire. There are things we can do to mitigate wildfire, and then to also increase our chances of insurability. So,
And the other people that are panicking are the insurance companies and the brokers.
yeah.
You know, they make money by selling insurance and making investments. If they don't sell insurance, they're not making money. So it's not necessarily the big bad insurance company. You know, they're looking for these solutions too. Just this morning at 11 o'clock this morning, I did a presentation targeted towards an insurance broker, and there were how many? 200 brokers on this Zoom this morning, geared towards insurance companies, telling them, look, you can insure, you can, this is reduced risk. Take the chance, you know. So we're working on both ends. We're working very closely with insurance companies to convince them that it's not a loss. It's not a helpless situation.
Got it. Any questions out there?
Yeah, please just jump in and remember to unmute yourself if you want to be heard.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
How about my CAL FIRE guys? Any input? Anything that I missed, or anything that the quality to add to our presentation?
Rich and OP, excellent presentation. In fact, you took the steam out of mine. So
Firefighters do to each other, right?
You can have this one. Yeah.
Excellent. I appreciate all the info. I think it's spot on. I think that you're giving great advice, and everything that you're saying lines up with the suppression tactics and frame of mind that you should be in to harden your home. And definitely an excellent presentation on both your guys' part.
Well, thank you very much.
And as a homeowner, I like the idea of, you know, I could look at my house and just be overwhelmed by all the things I should be doing, by just drawing up a list and start working on it. And, you know, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Absolutely. I use that one all the time. Yeah. And knowing those mitigating factors, you know, first is education. Where's my battle? Where are my vulnerabilities? People don't know that yet. And then they wouldn't necessarily, you know, firefighters know it because we know the science. The average homeowner is not going to know the science and the fire behavior and topography and all the nerdy stuff that firefighters know. Do your research. There's information out there. We've got presentations that go over fire behavior and how it impacts homes. Well, we learn your battle, and then you'll know what to do.
Yeah. And, you know, I have State Farm insurance, and they announced that they're going to non-renew our zip code here in Chino Hills. So my renewal came up in February. So thank goodness I passed their announcement. But next year I'm going to be going to market because they've already decided that they're not going to renew this zip code. And so the nice thing is that, you know, with some hard work, we've done some vegetation management around my property. I invested about $7,000 in ember resistant vents and gutter guards and a few other things with having the 0 to 5. And I got my certification from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. And so I'm going to be taking this and going to market and saying, hey, other carriers, who's willing to take me on. So I'm looking forward to seeing that process play out. But I have more confidence now knowing that my chances of insurability have just increased significantly. So for those of you that are suffering or you know that you're going to be facing a non-renewal, there's hope. There's absolutely hope that of things you can do to increase your chances.
And there are things in the works that are going to come down the pike in the next couple of years. It's going to be a rough couple of years, don't get me wrong. But there are things that are happening at the state level, at the federal level, some creative insurance things that are going to be happening. We're going to solve this problem. We're going to come up with answers, but it's in the works. But it's going to be a rough couple of years. So hang in there. Hang in there.
Thank you. Hi. Do I have a moment? Hi, my name is Luz Thompson. I'm a State Farm agent. And that was a great presentation. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the information. I do a lot of business in the Canyon and 91709, and there are a total of 8 homes that will be, they were supposed to be non-renewed, but just wanted to bring up to the table that I just, the day before the long holiday, we had a Zoom meeting with corporate, and all those people that are going to be non-renewed, State Farm is actually going to keep them, so that you all know that. There is going to be an endorsement attached to your existing policy if you are one of them on 91709, and there's going to be a 5% reduction on your existing State Farm policy so that you get to keep it. That way you get to keep all your discounts. However, you will be able to purchase, in addition to the State Farm policy, that will be mandatory, the CCFP, California Fair Plan Plus policy, which I think it's a win-win situation for the consumer, the agent, and the company. You get to keep all your discounts, you get to keep your agent and your insurance policy without your loyalties, discounts that State Farm offers. But I think it's really good news. I just attended a meeting and I thought, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. We are going to keep all the homeowner policies. It's not 70,000, it's less. For homeowner policies, again, in 91709, it's only 8 policies that were supposed to be non-renew. Now they will keep them. In the zip code of 92823, which is Carbon Canyon, there are 0 policies being non-renewed.
Wow, that's great. That's great news.
Yeah,
Luz. That's amazing.
Industry is responding. That's good.
Yeah, and look, if you put your information in the chat, I think that'd be good for us neighbors to have.
We need to talk.
But I do want to ask you. So it sounds like State Farm is going to say, hey, we're going to take your normal endorsements like water damage, wind, all of that, but they're going to then use California Fair Plan as the wildfire endorsement. Is that right?
That is correct. The State Farm policy is going to be sort of like a DIC, deep coverage policy, or what we used to call it back a few years ago, wraparound policy.
Wraparound. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. And look, these are some of the creative things that are having to take place. So now you've got insurance stacked on each other, right?
Yeah.
Or wrapped around each other. So now it's not just one insurance company or policy, it's a multiple that are going to have to stack this risk because one company is not willing to take on the whole thing. So look, the bottom line is there are the carriers are having to become more creative. This is a very good example of things that are taking place. So it's still going to be a little more costly, my friends, for you everyone to realize that. But at least you have insurance. At least you have
Thank you. Thank you so much. I agree.
Thank you, Luz. That's awesome.
I have a question. How much does it cost to have you come evaluate your home, my home, for instance?
Chloe, that's a great question. One of the things that we're doing right now is we're doing a virtual assessment. A virtual assessment is the most cost-effective way that we have found to help homeowners. That would cost you a minimal fee of $250, but it's 30 minutes of time with you. And what this looks like is we get your address, we do Google Earth, and then we let you know what videos to take around your property. And then we take those videos and we schedule an appointment, and we do a 30-minute call with you, explain everything that you have to do, and then say, here you go, send you an email, say, let's recap. Here are the things that you should do. That's the most cost-effective way to do it. The next step would be for us to do a physical inspection where we go out there. And so for that, the charges have changed. It's now $750. We go out there physically. We do a physical inspection. Rich or April or former firefighter or another firefighter will go out there. But we put together a complete report that is very comprehensive, specific to your home. So that gives you an idea. I hope that answers your questions. $250 virtual or $750. We come out and do an inspection physically.
Yeah, and thank you. And what is the lead time on arranging that?
Typically, it's about 7 to 10 days. And so some of our homeowners will call and say, hey, my policy's about to expire in a couple of weeks. And so then we'll have to make some changes, and we can get out there, sometimes the next day if we need to help the homeowner. And by the way, if some of you have received some of these notices that say, hey, the clock's ticking and you feel like you're running out of time, what we've done for other homeowners and insurance companies is we've done an assessment. The homeowner says, yes, I want to make the investment for this ember-resistant vents and gutter guards, for example. And what we'll do is we'll contact the insurance company, let them know, Mrs. Smith, Mr. Insurance Company, Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Smith have made this investment. We've placed the order for the materials. The materials are going to be another 7 to 14 days. Would you please extend coverage at least until the work is done? And oftentimes they'll say, yes, we'll extend it. Just give me proof that the work has been done. So for those of you that have an urgent situation, there's still a possibility to make it work.
It's my understanding that they are looking at the 0 to 5 feet and maybe coming up with some exceptions to that in terms of vegetation that would be allowed, low growing, I'm assuming. And
yeah, so Claire, that's a really good point. In order to get, so there's two different things. The gold standard is the Wildfire Prepared Home, which is created by the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. They say nothing, absolutely nothing, 0 to 5. That's the gold standard. But there are other insurance carriers that will say, hey, look, Claire, get the things out of here that are 0 to 5. If you have a potted plant there, that's okay. We're okay with it. If you have this other thing going on there where there's low grass, we're okay with it. So it depends on what the carrier is asking specifically of you and your property.
And currently CAL FIRE is working on the code coming in, and they're working with that too as to what the code will look like if and when it comes out.
right, I think it was related to code. So are insurance companies going to be, I guess not, are they going to force people to go to their gold standard, or is there
Great. Yeah, that's a good question. So the California Fire Code, and I don't know if Drew wants to talk about this, but the California Fire Code is a minimum standard. That's at 30 feet and 100 feet, soon to be the 0 to 5. They are working on what's the new program? The Ready for the Wildfire Home Hardening program that they have that's coming out.
Yeah, it piggybacks. It's very parallel to like Firewise Community, but it's Firewise and home hardening.
Yeah, and there's a name to it. I can't. But anyways, we're all saying the same thing. Okay, it's the same song, different choirs. And the insurance companies are going to follow what the insurance companies need. An example is the wildfire maps, the CAL FIRE maps, the SRA and LRA maps. Soon there'll be a new LRA map coming out. But those are hazard maps. The insurance companies don't necessarily look at those for insurance because they're looking at risk versus hazard. So they have their own maps, risk maps. Because we hear that too, where the new maps, local area responsibility maps are coming out. I'm going to be put into this area. I'm going to lose my insurance. And that's just not true. Those are hazard maps for the state. So we can put mitigation measures and apply code and start doing, some mitigation code, which again are minimum standards. They're designed to be effective, but also not to overburden the citizens of California. I mean, if they came in and said, oh boy, everyone's got to retrofit their house this year, I mean, they really can't do that. We don't want big government doing that anyway, right? So insurance companies are going to have their own requirements. Again, same song, different choir. And they're going to tell you an admitted carrier is going to say, hey, do the vents, I'm going to give you a discount. A non-admitted is going, do the vents or you're not going to get, or I'm not going to insure you. California is going to say right now, it's a really good idea to do your vents, but I'm not going to force you. So.
And Claire, to answer your question, right now, Farmers Insurance is requiring their homeowners to be IBHS approved. And if they do not get the wildfire prepared home certification, they're letting people know we will non-renew you. So not all carriers are moving into that gold standard, but it's likely going to be evolving into that in the next couple of years.
And that was the goal for the wildfire prepared home. It was sponsored by insurance companies to do the research and come up with the answers. So the initial plan was for insurance companies to go to that. So currently Farmers is the only one.
Trial.
All right,
I've got a
anybody else?
question.
Trial.
I have a question. This is Dustin Haug. I live in Sleepy Hollow area, which is pretty much surrounded by oak trees. And almost every house seems to be right next to an oak tree, or an oak tree is growing over the house.
Mhm.
Are oak trees a little more fire safe?
Yeah, they are. They are. So number one, they're a protected tree in California, the oaks and the sycamores. So in order to do anything to an oak, there's certain times of year and certain size of branches, and there's regulations for the oak trees. That being said, an oak tree is actually not a highly flammable tree. It's not like a conifer, anything with a large sap or oil content. So oak trees are not a huge fire hazard. They're part of our ecosystem. So yeah, as far as hanging over a home, the code does require that there be 5 feet of vertical clearance between your roof and those overhanging branches. That is in 4291 of the Public Resource Code. But yeah, oak trees are not a huge concern. Not as much as if it was, a pine tree or conifer or deodar or something like that.
Yeah. No, that's great news. Now, being said that we live in the Sleepy Hollow, which is in a kind of unique area, do you have any recommendations for talking, for the lack of stubborn neighbors, to change their ways into doing something, to changing,
Yeah, that's a difficult situation. And, and it's education. It's encouraging them to, share our QR code so they can see, host a wildfire safety event, get all your neighbors together, give us a call. We'll come out no charge and do a presentation just like this. We'll do, either online or in person. Yeah, it is frustrating. It was frustrating when I was a fire marshal, because again, as the fire department, we do a minimum standard, and I can only suggest the other stuff, and it was frustrating. And now that I'm on the private sector, and I can say you must do this, the insurance company must do this, we're still getting kickback and fee from people. I'd like to say people want to do this because they want to protect their home and their family. And for years, in public education, it was frustrating because everyone thought, yeah, it's a good idea, but they didn't follow through. It wasn't until all of a sudden their insurance bill doubled or going to get dropped, and it's their pocketbooks now we've got their interests. So at least we're making some headway. But you know, education is powerful. It is so powerful, and
Dustin,
that's where it begins.
I would agree with Rich. I think sharing educational things like this QR code, only because, you know, I've got neighbors here. Thank God, like my neighbors here are like, hey, OP, I'm ready. You know, in the next month or so, I want you to do X. I want you to do that, which is great. But not all neighbors are built that way, right? So I think having homeowners and neighbors really understand, like, I hope that through this presentation and some of the videos that you've seen, like, this has been put together very strategically to just help homeowners get a better idea of, like, oh my goodness, that could be my home. And I promise you, you do not want to go through a wildfire insurance claim. There is so much pain that comes with that things that you don't even realize are going to happen throughout this entire year or two that it's going to take to recover from that type of loss. It's incredibly painful. But to have your neighbors involved and really have the unified understanding protects you even more, because you know, there are times where Rich and I go out to a job site and Rich is like, yep, this house looks great. However, that neighbor, that vegetation or that home will take down this home. And so there's the proximity of being so close to each other really does create an additional threat that it starts with education, and hopefully the neighbors can really see the impacts of what it can do to their own home.
And it's a community problem and a community solution that starts with your property. And you can do all the investing and make sure your property is at the lowest risk. But if your neighbors don't take that action, and as you saw in that coffee park photos, if your neighbor's house burns, that radiant heat, that's also a fuel that it's not a fuel that you can get rid of and manage and regulate or modify. Your neighbor's house can burn your house down. So it's important to engage the neighbors on each side of you. You're going to be as safe as they're safe. And then that neighbor talks to their neighbor, and it becomes a community solution. It's house by house, but it's got to be the community.
Thank you. That's good advice. So what we're trying in the council, you know, to push and give information as much as possible. And that's very helpful. Thank you, guys. Great presentation. Very much appreciated.
Fantastic.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I think it was a great presentation. I guess I'm glad I didn't get to go out sailing, so I got to watch it.
We're glad your second choice was acceptable.
There you go. All right, I'm going to stop the recording to kind of end the presentation.